Test, test, testing the audio. Okay, so that's good. Let's make a phone call.
Hi, it's Dave Hanson.
Hi, Dave. This is Dalton.
Hey, Dalton. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Where are you calling from?
Plymouth, Indiana.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So you're doing a book on the ECHL.
Yeah, it's going to revolve around the Indy Fuel. I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with them, the minor league team there now.
Yeah, I think the Hanson brothers we've made an appearance down there.
Okay. Well, the whole premise is I'm trying to reach out to some of the guys who played in Indy years back and get their feel for the city and kind of the history of the sport in the city. Obviously a lot of people, when they think of Indy, they think of the Colts and the Pacers and racing. But there's a pretty vivid hockey history in Indianapolis that it seems like not a lot of people know about.
Right. All right, good. Well, what can I do for you then?
Well, the first question I have, just to kind of start off, is obviously you were a part of the 82-83 Checkers team that was just coming off a cup win, and you came back with that team and won another cup. What was it like there in Indy that year, and how were you a part of that culture?
Well, from what I recall, we were the Islanders farm team, and I think it was their second year as well to win the Stanley Cup consecutively. As far as the culture for the organization, it was top notch. I mean, we were part of an NHL. We were the top affiliate for the Islanders, like I said, and they had they took a lot of stock in developing their young players and had that formula where you brought in your young prospects that you want to develop and you surrounded them with quality veterans, and we had that with guys like Red Lawrence and Darcy Regier and Kevin Devine and a few others. You had a certainly a seasoned and excellent coach in Freddie Creighton. So all the ingredients were there as far as putting together a formula that would best help create a culture, a winning culture for everybody, and it was reflective of how the Islanders wanted things.
Well, you mentioned go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
You mentioned Freddie Creighton. I was looking at some history on him earlier. How was he as a coach? Because looking, if I counted correctly, and if I'm not mistaken here, in his career through different leagues, he reached 7 different finals, and I think he won 5 of them, which is just incredible.
Yeah. He was a player's coach. I mean, I probably should best explain that because it could be different terms. It was, for a guy playing, especially for a veteran playing for him, he wasn't so much as a technician, although he certainly was a scholar of the game. But he aside from the X's and O's, he knew his players. He knew how to work them to get the most out of them and create loyalty. And that's what he did. I mean, I for one, and I say this represented a lot of the other guys, would do our best to go through a block wall for him if that's what he wanted out of us. And so, you know, he got all we could give plus anything else that we had in the tank to do for him. And you know, he didn't do that based on past laurels. He just did that on his day-to-day approach to the game and the way he dealt with players.
Well, you mentioned going through a wall for him. Looking at the stats here and stats alone, I mean, it looks like 82-83 was one of your best seasons ever. I mean, can you speak on that to a point?
Well, it was, you know, and I'll start how I ended up there. You know, they had a fellow the year before there by the name of Frank Beaton, who was a very good friend of mine and a former teammate. And Frank played an enforcer role, I think, for them, and a veteran role for Fred, and you know, and helped contribute to the championship team there. And that 82-83 season, Frank decided he wanted to stay closer to home in Birmingham, and was able to sign with the Minnesota North Stars farm team, the South Stars. And as Frank told me prior to me going there, is that hey, you know, you can expect a call from Fred Crane from Indianapolis, because Fred called me and asked me about you, and I recommended you, and so I kind of think I was, you know, brought in to fill the void that Frank was leaving. So when I got there, the neat thing about that I thoroughly enjoyed playing for Fred was that, you know, natural for me was to fill, you know, the enforcer role, to be the guy on the team to do that. But Fred also recognized my ability to contribute other ways, and had me as a full-time penalty killer, and also played me regularly on a shift, and often with some of the top guys on the team, like Stoyanovich and Lawrence, and I'm trying to think who the guys were, but anyhow, you know, some of those top guys, and he played me regularly. As a result, you know, I still racked up the penalty minutes and doing my job, but I also, you know, had a pretty darn good year on the score sheet. So he recognized me for more than just my ability to, you know, drop the gloves when I had to.
So I guess taking a step back even further from when you arrived in Indy, correct me if I'm wrong, but Slapshot took place before that, correct?
Yeah, Slapshot came out. It was my first year. Actually, it was Slapshot came out in '77, which was my second year pro.
So, I mean, what was that like to be, you know, somewhat of a movie star, and then also be playing in, you know, professional hockey leagues around the country?
Well, you know, I don't know how much you would call me at that time a movie star. You know, that you think about back then, that was before the VCRs came out. You know, it was, you actually saw the movie in theaters, and then it hit the shelf, especially that movie with all the language and, you know, the unpolitical correctness of it and everything else. So the movie star part of it really didn't have a big factor in anything other than, you know, every city that I went into, of course, that was the first thing you wanted to write about, so that hit the headlines. And then, you know, constantly my teammates or the opposing players would, you know, be throwing hilarious lines out at me from the movie and that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess one of my final questions here, what would you, if you had to say one thing about Indy as a hockey town that not a lot of people know, what would it be from your experiences there, that one main season that you had in '82 and '83?
Well, I found that it was a great hockey town, and I have no idea what kind of attendance records we had, but I know we played in that big barn there in the fairgrounds, and it was I recall, it was a pretty good sized facility, and you know, we had pretty rabid hockey fans there. And even though it's, you know, I guess you would consider Indy a small big city or vice versa, like you say, with the NFL in it, and the basketball, you know, all those big things. But, you know, for a minor league program, it was, you know, we we were treated like professionals and had a great fan base that I was aware of. I loved playing there. In fact, the next season I really wanted to get back there, and just it really was more or less I was a victim of circumstances. I ended up getting stuck in Toledo of all places, but that's a story for another day. Find that one in my book.
I have to say that the Gold Diggers is probably the greatest team name I've ever heard in my entire life. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
So my final question here before we wrap up is, I don't know how familiar you are with the Fuel, but what are your thoughts on maybe what they're doing as an organization?
Well, I'm really not too familiar with it. I think I'm trying to recall if when we went down there, if they were the junior team or the pro team when we went in there, doing appearances, the Hanson brothers. But I just hope that whatever it is there, that they're doing a good job at bringing a quality product to the people of Indianapolis, because I think the hockey fans of Indianapolis will respond positively to it as they did back then.
Well, that's all I got for you, Dave. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, man. This is awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you got my email, phone numbers. For anything else I can do, give me a call.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right. And then send me the book. Let me know when the book comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.